Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Nick and Nick podcast. Thanks for joining us. Today, we've got an amazing individual. His name is Ken Gruber. Ken is the president of Omaha Rapid Response, and we want to be able to highlight and share with everybody the work that they do and the great need that they fulfill in throughout Omaha as well as the world. And so we are blessed to be able to be a part of what you guys are doing and love everything you're doing. So we just want to be able to express our gratitude towards that, as well as give you the floor to share what you guys have done, how it came about, and what we can do to all engage and branch arms and be a big part of being a solution in a time of need for people that go through devastation.
Well, as you said, we do work all over the world, and you can tell by the way I'm dressed, we're working today, actually.
Absolutely.
So we got a team in
Every day.
from Wisconsin today, so they're going at it hard. So on our new campus here. Well, personally, it started for me in '92. I spent 25 years in public safety around here and around Omaha, and in '92, God gave me two different dreams. They were about a month apart, exact same dream. And it showed the darkness spreading over the surface of the earth in the future, end times type of stuff. And within that, the darkness as it was covering the earth, there was these big, bright lights shining from the surface of the earth. Now there's only 10 or 12 bright lights for the entire world, but one of them was from the Omaha area.
That's awesome.
And it's like, okay, Lord, what are you showing me here? And like he was going to use Omaha and his body in Omaha to combat the darkness throughout the world as one of these points of light. But I kept hearing this word Echad. I didn't know what that meant at the time, and found out it's a Hebrew word and it means as one. And he wants his body to come together as one. And so I know, especially people get really intense about their religion and their beliefs and all that kind of stuff, and it's like there's no wiggle room for a lot of people. And that's fine, I don't try to convert anybody or whatever, but, I have my truths, you have your truths. I just look at it as the good Lord said, do you love the Lord with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength? And do you love your neighbor as yourself? And everything falls underneath there, right?
Yeah.
And so all the other commandments come underneath that. So I said, well, what a great basis to work from. And so I've talked with a lot of different people in different religions, and they're like, yeah, we call ourselves Christian, but people don't think so. And I said, well, let's talk about it. I'm not going to try to convert you. You're not going to convert me, but it gives me a point to learn about more religions, And so anyhow, in 1999, then one of the pastors at our church, we were going to Trinity at the time, which is Lifegate now. Pastor Ray Mayhew was on staff. He's British. He came from Great Britain, and he actually started March for Jesus in Great Britain and brought it to the States. So we used to do March for Jesus downtown Omaha and march all the way through the city and all that. So he brought that, and it went worldwide.
Is it still going on?
I don't know. I think in some areas it is, yeah, but I haven't heard it from around here for a while. And then, so the Lord put upon his heart to bring the body together in the midst of disasters, like Samaritan's Purse started in '71. I think Operation Blessing started in '96, but so in 2000, 99 and 2000, Pastor Ray went around to the different churches in the Omaha area. Sometimes he got shot down. Sometimes the leaders said, no, thanks, So he went to the membership. Not all. I mean, some leaders hooked onto it, but that's why we say Rapid Response was started in the year 2000 by members of 58 churches.
Wow.
Of all different religions, And
Okay.
so it was I went, wow, that's exactly, but I was still working at the time. And so it wasn't until I retired in 2005, and in January 2006, I've been involved with Rapid Response ever since then. And so that's what it is. God's used Rapid Response to bring people together in the midst of disaster. And we tell people, watch out. First of all, we tell them, hey, if you want to come and help people, it's all about relationship with us. And if you brought an agenda, leave it at the door.
Yeah.
We don't. And if you're open to that kind of stuff, you're going to be so blessed, and you're going to get hooked, because we see the hurt and the pain of people on some of the worst days of their lives, and to have a chance to go in and love on them right then and there is a great opportunity. It's like, do we want to see everybody come into the kingdom and have a relationship with the Lord? Sure, we do. But we don't go in and beat the Bible over anybody's head. We go in and just love on them, work, and ask them, hey, what is it you need? We may think, well, you need a new roof because the tornado just blew it off, or you need to muck out from the floods, or you need to whatever. But we'll go in and ask the homeowner or the property owner, what is it you need? And you'll be surprised. It'll have nothing to do with their property either. It's like, oh, I'm looking for this, or I need this. But we want to build those relationships. And if that means just sitting around and listen, maybe we don't get to them for a week and they're telling their story for the 501st time because they need to talk about it. And I tell people, especially elderly Americans, they go, I can't help. There's nothing I can do. I say, can you listen to people's stories? Because that's healing. You don't know if that's going to get them over the hump or not,
It's one of the things that I don't want to, because I think it's a real valuable point, is you're meeting people at such a time of need. It's the fulfillment that comes out of that is secondary, but the response and what that does for an individual when they're going through a loss like that, I'm sure there's a lot of stories of bringing hope to people that, now feel hopeless. And so I'm in those times when you guys are meeting people and you're seeing them and they're in the worst place that they could possibly think that they've ever been, what is it that the team does when they first get to a property? What does the team do? Do they just simply embrace them first, or do they just show up and get their hands, dirty and get to work?
Well, most of the people are a core group of memberships. We embrace them or whatever. A lot of people that just come on and we don't want to turn anybody away, but they come to volunteer. They usually just get in right at it. But
okay,
you have to stop and think for just a second. Put yourself in their shoes. Your house is wiped out. You may have lost some animals. You may have lost a person or whatever. But you're in there, and your life just got turned upside down. And then all of a sudden you have a dozen or 2 dozen or 50 people, strangers on your property going through your stuff. That's a bad situation.
Certainly could be.
Right. Absolutely. And a lot of people want to go in there, and their hearts are wanting to help.
Yeah.
But you have to just stop everybody and say, guys, we empower the homeowner. You're the boss. You tell us what. We won't throw anything away unless you tell us to throw it away. And we won't throw away pictures. We won't throw away anything that's of value, even if we find it in the mud, because we'll clean them up. Sometimes we have them professionally cleaned and give them a book back of their pictures, because those things can't be replaced. Like, hey, my kids, maybe their son died in the war or something. He had all these pictures of the kids, and now all of a sudden we give them a book back of these restored pictures. It's like that can't be replaced. Building a house can be replaced. That's the easy part, actually.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
You guys love them from the get-go, and you're loving them in a simple way that is healing and holistic. And so to me, when I think about that and I see that in my head, I just see a powerful picture of embracing somebody, not because you need something from them, but you just want to be an impact and you want to be a presence for them, to encourage them to have support and know that you guys are willing to do, or you're going to do whatever it takes to bring light into a dark situation. So that's a powerful picture.
Yeah, and so we have this nice new facility here to do training, and so you think about, framing and chainsaw work and medical work and all these different kinds of things, but one of the most important things we do is we train chaplains. If they want to go and be an ordained chaplain, they can, but just having those tools in their tool belt, listening skills.
Gosh.
Or identification, like, a team shows up and the person's overwhelmed, you kind of set them at ease by talking to them, but then you have 8 or 10 people standing there and they're overwhelmed, and you got to be able to go, okay, this needs to be more one-on-one.
Yeah.
And so that's when you send people, hey, we're going to tarp your roof, okay? So the rest of your stuff doesn't get wet.
Yeah.
So we send people to go tarp the roof, so then you're one-on-one. And so that you open that up and get more intimate in terms of the communication with them, and you get a chance. Because if you just sit there, we've had a lot of people, believe it or not, a lot of farmers, they're so self-sufficient, they go, don't even need help. So we'll call them back a few days and they go, no, I'm doing okay. And then we call them back in another week and they say, well, they start, you can just tell by their words, and you got to recognize that. It's like,
yeah,
well, yeah, I'm doing pretty good. And maybe by the second week, they realize how overwhelming it is what they're doing. And it's like, what? We're still here for you. Well, why don't you come over and talk to me for a little bit, because they're so used to doing everything themselves. And then, but a disaster like that, then it just compounds their workload by 100 times. And so then we're there for them, So it depends on how long it some people it takes longer than others. Sometimes we've had it reminds me of Hurricane Harvey in Houston, dumped 60 inches of rain in 72 hours. And so we went to this neighborhood, started working on some houses. It was really nice. And we went down the neighborhood. I had some people walk down the neighborhood, some of the ladies. They talked to some of the ladies, and one lady said, "Oh, I'm good." And I could tell her house was like all flooded out. And she was just sitting out in a chair out in the front of her garage. And she had pulled some things out. And so I told one of our ladies, I said, "Just go sit and talk to her." So you'd walk by a few hours later, all of a sudden she pulled up another chair, so my person's talking to her, and then all of a sudden you look like they were kind of holding hands, and then they're hugging each other and crying, and 4 hours later she comes back, she goes, she wants some help now,
Oh my gosh, it's powerful.
Yeah, it is. So, everybody's different, but it's so overwhelming, and then, you have to realize that you have the heart to want to help, but sometimes your help is not wanted at that moment, because they don't know what they want.
So in time, we can get to some specifics, but like in a time that there's a devastation or a natural disaster, and you guys get there, how do you project an amount of time that you can allocate to that? What resources you can apply to it? How do you gather that? Is it just from the years of experience? Is there a commitment from the amount of resources of people that you have? How do you decipher how much time and energy and resources you can apply to one disaster?
Yeah, it's all that actually. Basically, our ministry is threefold. We got to have people that give, we got to have people that go, and we got to have definitely people that pray.
Okay.
So if we don't have volunteers, we're kind of dead in the water.
GGP.
We can have all the money in the world
and pray.
Yeah, if we don't have if we have all the money in the world and no volunteers, we're dead in the water.
So real quick, what is the main principal way that you guys do get resources? Is it through donations?
Financial resources, it's a lot of just friends and contacts that we have in the Omaha area, because Omaha is a small town. I was born and raised here,
Yeah.
And as you build relationships through disasters, it kind of builds more. So we have some churches that sponsor us. We have some companies that do that. We have individuals that do that. We accept no government money.
Oh my gosh!
And we've never really actively sought money out.
No grants.
We just starting to apply some grants through some friends of mine, foundations or whatever. And in fact, I got a meeting in a couple of days to go meet with one. So basically, it's word of mouth. It's like last year we had 3 disasters back to back: tornado, then the floods 3 weeks later, and then we called the Nebraska hurricane in July.
Yes.
And so it was like, whoa, we had, it was just crazy. But we communicate with volunteers. We have 12,400 volunteers on our list.
Wow, that's nationwide.
Nationwide, yeah. But I'd say 80% of them are in the Midwest.
Okay.
So we can do a call out, and we actually have a new app now. And they can, we have the calendar on there. So we have some things scheduled as we go back, because we'll keep going back as long as the door's open. God keeps that door open, and we'll welcome. We go back many times. The hurricanes the tornadoes in Kentucky, we went back 9 different times. The Fort Myers, Florida, from the hurricane went back 8 times. Down in Louisiana, we went back 8 times the cutoff.
Wow.
So we'll continue to go back as long as there's things to do and there's relationships, and because we want to build on those relationships. And we encourage all of our volunteers, hey, exchange emails, exchange phone numbers, keep up, because I can't do it all, and we're pretty good about probably connecting with people for years after disaster, probably 70 to 80% of the time in the States, and probably 30 to 40% of the time in the other countries.
Gosh, that's incredible. So when you guys get connected, is that with a local church, or what do you guys, what's your partnership, or how do you, when a devastation occurs, how do you find somewhere to set up and allocate your resources and your people to?
Well, being in public safety and having a lot of former and current public safety guys, we want to go right now. It's like, we want to go help everybody, and we can. We could be gone every day of the year, because there's so many disasters all the time, because we go to any kind of disaster. And so
Just name a few. I mean, I know you. I know personally. I know you've said you guys go to Ukraine. You've
we
been
did,
to.
yesterday, the 5th team just got back from Ukraine, you know.
Gosh, that's incredible.
Yeah,
I don't want to
we
get
went
off
to
the
Maui
story,
for the
but
fires, you know, almost 2 years ago.
wow.
You know, hurricanes, tornadoes. We went to El Fuego volcano in Guatemala in 2018 when that erupted.
Wow.
And they said only 300 people lost their lives. Well, the government doesn't consider the indigenous people on the volcano as
Oh
they
my
don't as
gosh.
contestants. So we were in little villages that lost everybody, 2,000 people, 1,400 people, whatever. It was thousands that died, you know.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of some weird ones. I mean, you think of the tornadoes around here and the hurricanes on the coast. We do a lot of that kind of stuff. But the Lebanese-Israel war in 2006, Pakistani earthquake. Yeah, we just, tsunami in Sri Lanka.
So that goes to your core mission and that vision that you had originally of Omaha being a beacon and being able to not just be in Omaha, Nebraska, but be a beacon across
Right.
the world.
And the one thing that we want to make sure that we don't do is do our own will.
Yeah.
And that's so easy to do a lot of times. And so really we look for 3 major confirmations from God before we go anywhere, you know. So like the tornadoes in Elkhorn last year, we lived in Elkhorn. And so I'm videotaping the tornado going by, and I told my wife, get in the truck. And because we got our stickers on the truck, you know, the fire department and everybody let us in. And we just started pulling people out of their houses. And the tornado was still going over Bennington, and things were still flying through the air. And, you know, that doesn't usually happen. We're not first responders. We usually go in on an average of 48 to 72 hours later when the search and rescue is done. Sometimes maybe even weeks later, because we know a tornado, a good-sized tornado covering a large area, it's a 3-year process to get a majority of the people back online. Hurricanes can even be longer than that. The floods from 2019 around here, we just finished up on the last 2 houses 6 months ago.
Yeah, out at Kings Lake.
Yep.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
Wow.
So there's all kinds of. Now, we don't build houses to fruition mostly around the States, but we're going to do it here for our neighbors if we can. I mean, we build tiny houses in Ukraine for the war refugees from Eastern Ukraine. You know, so we do a lot of that kind of stuff, but it kind of how the Lord leads and our resources, that kind of thing. So, you know, people, their heartstrings are pulled and they give more during the disasters, which we need that, you know.
Yeah. What type of things do you do when there is a disaster? Are you talking about from the ground up? Do you guys assist in every aspect of
a
property?
Yeah, we can. It depends on the resources of people. And let me go back to kind of answer your question before.
That are able to attend the devastation.
Right.
Okay.
So, you know, if the Lord opens up the door for us to go in the States, actually internationally too, a lot of times, because we were put together by members of 58 churches, that is a huge connection throughout the world. And so we'll make some phone calls. We usually look for churches that have showers, because I want to make sure my team takes a shower and debriefs every evening.
Yeah.
And less than 5% of churches have showers. So now we have a shower trailer and a laundry trailer that we can take with us.
I think we've seen that.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat. That's really cool. You
right.
got 2 of them now, right?
No,
Or
just the one shower trailer, yeah.
Okay.
And then, so that opens up the door to stay at more churches. But we love staying at churches. We don't always, sometimes you're building a hole for a latrine and you're staying in tents in Nepal and some other places. But in the States, we almost always stay at churches. We have a room for women, a room for men, that kind of thing. Make connections through somebody usually. A lot of times we haven't met them before. But if there's disasters in the same place, we go back to those same churches that we've been to before. Yeah. And so they're really happy going, we've never done this before. And would you say, hey, if you got a kitchen facility, we'll take care of the food? And they go, no, we want to support you and make you breakfast and dinner at night. And that makes them a part of it too.
Absolutely.
And so, but that's a huge first step, not just hosting us, but it's like they know their community better than we do. So what are they doing for the community? So that's one thing we pray about. Are they actually actively doing it? They may not know that they've done this before, but they're already feeding people. They got a feeding program. So they're taking their resources, and it's like, did your church get hit? Well, yeah, we lost this and this and this. It's like, okay. So I'm asking you, do you need help out in the field, which I'm sure you do, but do you need help getting your church back going? because we'll focus on the church. You guys are out doing the thing in your community because you know the community.
Yeah.
We'll help you get your church back up online, and then we'll help you where we can out there. And then they can tell us who's in the greatest need. We know everybody has a need, and so we just ask them, who's in the greatest need? So who doesn't have a church? Who doesn't have a family around? Who doesn't have coworkers? Who doesn't have that kind of support? Who doesn't have insurance maybe sometimes? I mean, there was like 6 houses in Elkhorn didn't have insurance.
Absolutely.
You know?
I mean, the learning lessons and the things that are taught during devastation, and I'm sure you could attest to this even more than I can, but just in being a part of some natural disaster opportunities, I have seen kind of the worst of, you know, what can happen in a devastation or a loss like that. But I do, you know, one of the things that I recall that's just vivid in my memory is when that tornado hit, I was also just a mile away from it. And so I went down right away that night and got tangled up down in the mess with the cops. I got kind of boxed in, but that next morning, my kids and everybody I could, we went down, and to see the amount of people that was at Relevant Church with Omaha Rapid Response down there, and you guys had already assisted, and I think you guys had already deployed like 450 people in a very, very quick and short amount of time in several different areas and locations. I mean, the experience that would have taken and the time that you guys must have put into understanding and directing individuals to serve the community was just a awesome thing to see. That was a great experience for me. I think it was a great experience for our community. I think it's a fulfillment for the local church, and I know even at Life.Church where I attend, the amount of support that they'd even been seen through Omaha Rapid Response was tremendous. And so in an example like that, with Relevant being so close to the disaster and this being so close to home and being able to allocate the resources and the people directly from here, did that make your vision? Was that part of the vision when that occurred at the scale that occurred? Was that something that was some fulfillment that touched your heart? Were you able to see the impact that Omaha Rapid Response has been able to give on a larger scale due to the proximity of the damage?
Probably seeing the biggest impact that we could. I mean, we've had a lot of impact around.
Absolutely.
But just the feedback we had. I mean, like that Friday night when the tornado came in, I called Relevant. They've been supporters of us for many years now, basically since the floods, or maybe a little before the floods, 6 years ago. And so I just asked them, hey, can I bring my trailers down on Friday night? We didn't really sleep at all Friday night because I'm making phone calls and apologizing to people because they know this disaster happened. So some people were expecting my phone call 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, that kind of thing. So setting all that stuff up, getting back to the church at 6 a.m. And then pastor going on that Saturday morning going, how many expecting? I said, 400 to 500. He goes, wow, I'm not having church here tomorrow. I go, yeah, you are. You're having church out here. That's right.
This is church.
You're having church out here. And we didn't have 400 or 500 show up that first day. We had 3,000 show up on that Saturday.
What a blessing.
It was blessing and a logistical nightmare too, a little bit.
I guess that's what I was trying to get at is the amount of support and what occurred. That took some experience and took...
Yeah, I didn't realize where we were short on some things and training. That's what this facility is going to really help with. I realized it would really help for us to have a drone one of these days because two drone operators showed up, and I go, thank God. So they went up over Ramblewood and north of there, Arborview and all that kind of stuff, and I went, wow, okay, now I got to see it from the air. So then I knew the first thing was I had my team leaders that do chainsaw work, all the trees in the street and all that, and I said, I need 40 chainsaws, I need 40 trucks and trailers and all that, and I need 200 laborers.
Yeah.
That know and listen to the leader here, go right across the street, And then I said, and then talking to people back and forth and being on the phone and all that. And I said, I need another 100 up here in Bennington. I sent I think I sent like 20 people down to Waverly even, because the building collapsed, but there was only 3 or 4 houses that really got hurt. So when
Okay.
we touched base, we didn't hardly do any work there, but just like I was talking about, talking to the people, hey, we're here if you need us, that kind of thing. So they were able to come back and we could deploy them in Waterloo. So it's just a matter of, taking them and where they're going and all that, and having a lot of new people show up. And so I know there were some people that in the afternoon we were still deploying, and people stood around for maybe an hour or two, and some people getting a little frustrated. But that was the nightmare part of it, and we tried to get everybody. I know some people left, but those things happen, And so we tell people don't self-deploy to any disaster because you might create a problem. But it was a good problem to have. We had enough resources that day. We had 10,000 by the end of the week.
Wow.
And it just kind of, that first weekend, though, was pretty crazy. But I started getting calls from, the sheriff guys were coming over and said, Ken, can you please have your guys not park on Maple Street because they're creating a big, I said, so that was something we had to park other places. Just communication is the biggest thing. The sheriff called me and said, you guys are knocking it out of the park. The governor called me. I had all these different people call me. And then all the news media was calling me because I was taking pictures going that Friday night when the tornado was still going. I was taking pictures. I was walking from house to house and helping people out of their houses thinking, I left my wife in the car and I said, because I thought I'll be pulling out dead bodies, and I didn't want her to see some of that. And
What a blessing that there was none.
yeah, exactly. So, but the local news media follows Facebook. So I just posted on Facebook because there's nothing can hit you harder than actually seeing it in a picture and a video,
Yeah.
short little video clip. And I'm saying, hey, there's going to be a call out, guys, so be prepared. We're going to be hitting it hard tomorrow, that kind of thing. Well, the news media started calling me locally, and they couldn't get in because the streets were all blocked off. And they said, are you there? I said, yeah. And they said, can we use your pictures? I said, of course. Then within an hour that night and all day on Saturday, I got calls from every outlet across the country. Because at first they were saying, it's the worst tornado in Nebraska history. It was an F5, and it was, how people get all exaggerated
Yeah.
on stuff like that. And they were saying, oh, you were there. Can we use your pictures and video? Yes, you can. And what was really cool, though, is the national media, almost every one of them said, so what can we help you with? What do you want to tell people out there? And I said, well, we need people to pray.
Amen.
And like half of the national media said they need people to pray. I was
That's
shocked,
fantastic.
So yeah,
That
it was
could have
pretty
been
cool.
more, that is certainly just as impactful as,
Absolutely.
doing this
Yep.
face to face. So that's really neat.
So I didn't have time to really look at the news media, but people were showing me clips of the actual news that they were saying. They're going, and this Ken Gruber from Rapid Response wants everybody to pray, keep praying, I was like, wow, all right. So that was cool. So,
That's awesome.
yeah.
This facility, we're gonna certainly show some pictures and things of the facility. Tell me how this came about. I know this has been part of maybe the dream or part of the growth of what has occurred since you guys have been so impactful, and this is just part of what's come with the opportunity for you guys to be more impactful as these things, continue to occur or when they occur. But this property itself is a beautiful property. How did this property come about?
So we've been looking for about 8 years because we've had all of our stuff in about 8 or 9 really large storage facilities, and we haven't really, basically, we officed out of wherever my wife and I were living, basically, and so we said, we really need a place to do training and people to come and gather and that kind of thing and just experience God, too. And so we've been praying about, we thought we really need a good sized property and something that we don't have to maybe do too much work on. And so about 2.5 months after the tornado hit, this property came across my phone, and my wife likes looking at the pictures, and she started flipping through the pictures and goes, wow, look at this. And so then it was kind of weird because I'd said that went for sale like 3 hours earlier, but it was under contract. And I went, how can that be? So we called our real estate agent, and she said, well, I found out it's actually both. She's been under contract, and by this Friday, her 60 days are up. So the homeowners just said, we want to put it back on the market and see if there's any nibbles on it, So anyhow, our prayer, we always went in with an open hand. We thought we'd found a property out in Ashland, and that kind of slipped through. And it's like, Lord, you don't want it? Close the doors. If it's you, do what only you can do. We don't even have our hand in it. So We saw that the first night, talked to our real estate agent the next day, and we just drove up here to time it from Elkhorn, where we were living at the time, and it was 22 minutes. And anyhow, we ran into the homeowner's sister who was coming up to use the pool, and she goes, "Oh, well, come on up. We'll show you this is my brother's place. I don't know if we can show you the house, we can show you the property." And she had a hat on that said "Pray." And so we started talking about things. She goes, "Oh, I've heard Rapid Response," and we knew a lot of the same people, and so it was kind of cool. Everything happened, and our real estate agent called us hours later and said, "Hey, the homeowner wants to show you the property."
That's amazing.
And they'd already had 2 offers on it, like in like a day or two, And so
this property itself. Was it built by the grandpa or the dad of Woodhouse?
no, Bob Woodhouse himself.
Bob Woodhouse built the property.
Built the house in '99 for himself.
99.
Then he built this building 5 years later.
We'll show some footage of the property because it's just beautiful coming into the actual property.
Yeah, everything's growing now. So this is the first time we've actually been here during the springtime and watching everything grow. I had some experts out here going, "Those look like weeds. Should you pull them up?" And they go, "No, those are flowers." And I go, "How about these over here?" They go, "No, those are weeds. Get them out." So I didn't, because there's trees on this property I've never even seen before. I don't even know what kind of trees they are. And so the same with the flowers and the plants and everything else. So they had some, professionals come in and do this kind of stuff. So
this feels, when I drive up here, and I mentioned this to you the last time I was here, is when I get out of the vehicle and I get out here and I'm sitting my feet on the ground, I feel a sense of peace and fulfillment, and it sits up above the city. So it's kind of neat for me. I kind of feel that that sense of this is set up on a hill to be a beacon, and so that might not be come across for everybody, but that's just what I sense.
Well, 100% of the people said, "Wow, it's peaceful. I feel the peace of God here." There had no exception. Everybody said that,
It really does.
And then it's like, well, you're kind of like right in the city and by a neighborhood, but you're in a whole nother world.
You
'cause
are.
You got to come down through the trees and you go across the bridge, and it's like, wow. Just like we were when we first showed up going, wow, this is kind of an unusual property, So, but it had everything we needed, and it's got the big outbuilding that we could unload 8 or 9 of our storage facilities. Because Kenny, you can imagine everything was in different storage. When the tornado hit, I had to go get the trailer at one.
I know it.
It's like, okay, we got to have chainsaws. So we're like putting all this stuff together. It's like
The amount of time and
Oh, my
energy
gosh.
that it took to actually
Right.
be able to facilitate that. I mean,
Right.
that in itself.
Yeah. So having everything here and having the volunteers come up and help this, and now we've been here for months, but still, we look at all the organization we still got to do, and empty some of the big trailers out there, So it's still a process, It's a lot of work up here. There's a lot of stuff to be done up here, and not being able to walk for a few months, and trying to mow and do that kind of thing, But it's such a blessing to be up here. And we didn't even want a swimming pool. The swimming pool's nice, like, oh, big luxury. So swimming pools take a lot of work, and then there's higher insurance and all that. And I thought, do we really want to have a swimming pool? And then all of a sudden, like within the first 2 weeks of being here, I had churches calling me going, "Hey, you got a saltwater pool there? Can we come up and do baptisms?" I go, "Absolutely, you can do baptisms. That's great."
That's part of those 54 connections that you
Right.
guys started off from originally.
Yep.
How many? I'm going to get back to the property itself because it's just an awesome testimony. One, how the property came about. Two, even how you guys were able to facilitate that, being a nonprofit and knowing that you guys don't have grant money. You guys aren't taking. This is all resources. So you guys are obviously doing an amazing job of taking the resources that you guys have available and putting it to a bigger opportunity and blessing those that are, it's creating a much bigger blessing than what, a dollar can go if it's just for you or I.
Right.
So
Right.
really impactful there. The property itself, so Bob Woodhouse built the property. The other individual that, that had owned the property, 60 days, the real estate deal transaction falls through. You guys are looking at it. You come up, you see it. How do you guys actually make the transaction happen, knowing that there was other people that wanted the property? I mean, this is a beautiful property.
I'm telling you, we did not make it happen. Only God made it happen. We saw it on a Sunday night for the first time. The homeowner wanted us to come out on Tuesday to see the property. Wednesday, we worked with our attorney to put in a bid, even after midnight, because it was a holiday on Thursday. We put in a bid 8 o'clock on Thursday morning on the holiday. They only had one condition, that was they had to give right of refusal to the person under contract 48 hours. So she had until 10 o'clock on Saturday, but she called at 5 o'clock on Friday afternoon and said, I can't get it done. So we saw the house first thing Sunday on my phone, and we were under contract on Friday.
That's incredible.
5 days. All the real estate said, we've never seen anything like this happen. We've never seen it happen. I go, well, that's God. That's our God right there. And then, we went to 8 different banks that were interested. We'd never been in debt before. So I put that on my board and I said, hey, I don't like being in debt. But they all voted 100% like, let's get the property. We've been saving for a while. We've got a down payment for it. Let's get the property, and hopefully it'll be easier to raise money for it because it's not a pie in the sky idea. It's actually concrete.
Yeah,
it's actually right here.
Yeah, it's tangible.
You come here, let's start doing it. Let's start doing training here. Let's start doing the things we needed to do. So it worked out. The bank thing fell through 3 days before we were to close because one guy in the bank had been on vacation, and he comes in and says, I don't feel comfortable because there's no guarantees.
You have no collateral.
Yeah, and they said, well, we help banks. I mean, we help churches do that, and there's nobody guaranteeing stuff. But he still wouldn't budge, and then he came back with triple the amount of monthly payments and all this kind of stuff. And we said, no, we'll go with the original amount, but not changing it. And so the former owner who bought it from Woodhouse, he said, well, I'll finance a third. One of my donors said, I'll finance a third, and we had a third for a down payment. And
just incredible.
Yeah. So we didn't have to go to a bank, which saved us about $45,000 right at the top.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anytime and this just tends to be the way it is, you treat people right, you keep those core principles, you just be a beacon, and you just do the right thing, treat each other the way you want to be treated, live your life on purpose, and these opportunities just tend to lend themselves continually. So it's an honor. It really is to, I've been in this building a couple of times, and we're going to share some of the videos and the highlights of some of the devastations that you guys have been able to impact people, not just locally and regionally, but all over the world. How do you keep yourself grounded, and what do you do? How does the team and yourself, how do you keep yourself grounded when you know that you're going into these natural disasters and you have people that they could have lost their whole home, they could have lost a loved one, they certainly could have lost a loved pet, and how do you guys keep yourselves grounded?
Well, for me, it's just experience. I started going to crime scenes with my dad when I was 10, so I saw some really horrific things, and then being in public safety for 25 years. So, and now I've been doing this for 19 years. So yeah, I'm getting old. So, but you see some similar things, but then there's always something new that you see. So you just go in there and realize, I don't want to send anybody else in there. I want to go in there first because I know what the impact's going to be.
Okay.
I know that we can go in there and love on people, and we're going to be there. It's just kind of like if your life needed to be saved and somebody needed to do CPR on you, you want me there.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to stop until I get you ticking again.
Yeah.
I won't until the doctor tells me an hour later, I'm calling it. Because that's happened before, where I'm pushing on somebody's chest for an hour. If you ever done CPR, 5 minutes, you're dead. And I've done little kids for an hour in the emergency room of the hospital. So it's like you're just going to keep going. So it's like, I'm not trying to pat myself on the shoulder. I'm just saying it's a great opportunity that God has given me, that I'm trained to do these things, but you want me there. You want, Omaha Rapid Response there, because we're going to focus on you and what your needs are personally. We know we can kind of see what your physical needs are, but we're different than a lot of other organizations because we are definitely wanting to see what your spiritual and mental and emotional needs are. So those are even more important to us than your physical needs. Physical needs are important. We want to get things going. We want to see a progression there because it helps them mentally see, oh, it's no fun watching my house demo, but you got footings in now, and you got framing in now, or you got a roof on now, and that kind of thing. So that aids in it, but it's still a pain for them. How do I prepare? You're praying. I've already looked at it and like, Lord, give me 3 confirmations to go. So it's like the doors are open. Let's go. If we don't go, we're being disobedient because that's the number one thing. We just want to be obedient. And so knowing that and God sending you, if you're obedient to that, God just will bless your socks off.
Yeah.
And
you guys were getting ready to take a sabbatical when the hurricane hit North Carolina.
Yeah, we were going to take a sabbatical like we do about every year and a half. And then over the next 5 weeks, we got to spend about 6 days on a sabbatical, because we were going down to Florida anyhow. So then it was Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina. We were bouncing around between our teams in all 3 of those states, and doing this and that. And then, we had so much high tree damage too. While we were down there, we bought that lift in Atlanta. So we got that 60-foot lift out there. But it's, things will crop up like that. But, as a team leader then also, you're focused on the people, the victims, but you're actually more focused on your team and let them focus on whatever. So you're watching interaction, especially like
you have a team of leaders that you can follow and that
Right.
have been a part of this organization for a period of time, and
Right.
that they just may need some overhead direction, but they generally know where their skill set's going to be best
right. So
utilized.
we'll have people in our group that say, well, you only want Christians going, don't you? I go, no.
No,
If I have a team, let's say I have a team of 10, I want 8 of them to be good believers.
sure.
Because the other 2, what better way to show the hands and feet of God than to go do this?
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
they'll get hooked and go, I want to go every month. Come on.
I've heard a saying, and it says the most selfish thing you could do is always help somebody else, not because of what you do for somebody else, but the reward that you get internally
Right.
from helping somebody.
Sure.
That impact lasts forever.
Yep. I tell people, that they want to pat you on the back or whatever. And I said, don't pat me on the back. I feel like a thief. And they're like,
Yeah,
what? You feel like
right.
a thief? I go, we're a blessing thief. Because we go, and yes, we know we're blessing people, but the blessings that you get returned is exponentially more.
Absolutely.
That's why I tell people, if you don't want your life changed, don't go.
It's not about
gonna
what you
change your
do,
life.
it's about what you give,
Right.
right?
Yep.
The return is inevitable, and it's not even about that.
Right.
It's never about what the return is.
Nope.
If you can simply keep the sole focus off of you and onto whether it's other people or the mission at hand, it just lends itself to, general success. So,
Some of our core group, we got some really good evangelists in our group, and I have to hold them back. Those first couple of days, I go, we're not going to go in and beat the Bible over anybody's head. Because
Yeah.
guess what? Some people hate God for doing that to them. Oh,
Absolutely.
I hate God. Get out of my face. I don't want to talk to you.
And you don't want that.
Oh, Jesus loves you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Jesus loves you, but we're not going to go in there and go, oh, you need a new house, or your pet dog died, and it's like,
If you don't love
Jesus loves
Jesus,
you, that kind of thing. So I just tell them, I go, do not. I'm going to tell you right now, do not even mention Jesus that first day or whatever. You go and love them, meet them right where they're at, and then after 2 days or 3 days, sometimes longer, they'll go, now you came from where? Omaha? Why'd you come all the way here to help out? And then you have an opportunity to just, we say a little statement. It's like, we love and serve God, and God loves you through us.
Amen.
That's simple.
Is that your guys' core statement, your core value?
No. It's a statement that we do use when people ask us that kind of thing. It's an easy,
great.
It's the easy answer.
Absolutely.
We usually have to repeat it because they go, what?
Yeah.
And so we love and serve God, and our God loves you through us. So it's like, wow, maybe I need to get to know this God, or I need to know more. But we let them open the door. We don't do that. It's like we ask them, why? Why are you doing this? Why do you do what you do? Why did you come from Omaha? A lot of times we have to explain it, especially people on the coast or in other countries. They go, what's an Omaha?
Who is Omaha?
Yeah, what's Omaha? And we go, well, it's, even people in New York go, are you by Chicago?
Yeah,
Or something like that. I go, well, we're a town in the middle of the United States, pretty much in the middle.
It is.
And, we came all that way so.
I truly think that that's exactly why, Omaha, and that's why part of the reason why this is such a huge, huge blessing and an opportunity is because it is centrally located. Like, this is generally the center of the United States. And so out of here, you can deploy teams in either direction.
Right.
And the need is always in every direction.
Yep.
Whether it be flooding or fires or tornadoes or hurricanes. I mean, it's just astronomical, the type of need that there is. What are the main needs or the main devastations that you guys go to? Is there a specific, because you even mentioned war ravaged areas.
Mm-hmm.
What is it how do you guys constitute, or what constitutes a need for Omaha Rapid Response?
People hurting,
Okay.
either man-made or natural disasters. And so let's use Ukraine as an example. It kind of went by the way of Australia. So I got a call from some friends of mine. I was a missionary in Brazil for a while in the Amazon River Basin. And the people I was working with, she was from Australia. Her husband was from Minnesota. And so I got a call from them, and they said, hey, are you thinking about going to Ukraine? I said, we're praying about it right now. And they said, well, two of the guys from our church, married Ukrainian women, and they're in Ukraine right now. They're in Kyiv. And they said, they need help bad. Can we connect you? I said, yeah. So I connected right with these. And they work with YWAM, Youth with a Mission. And my friend John Dawson used to be the president of YWAM. He kind of took over from Lauren Cunningham, who started YWAM, who just died a year or two ago. So it's kind of a close-knit little community. And so I'm talking to them, and they said, well, hey, you need to get a hold of Sasha, who's the director of YWAM in Ukraine. So I got a hold of him, and everything just opened up. And so we've been going all of our teams through with Sasha.
And what are you doing there?
Mostly different things. First of all, we're building shelters for the refugees from the eastern part there. And so some of it was taking an old abandoned school, and then we'd take the classrooms, and we would maybe take a regular classroom and turn it into 3 different apartments. And we redid the bathrooms. And what was nice about a school, they had so many toilet stalls, and they had so many because it was a school. So we replaced the toilets and the sinks and see if they needed new pipe and all that kind of stuff, insulate them different. Put in doors and new flooring and that kind of stuff. So that was real easy. We didn't have to build a building. Or we were building tiny houses that you could fit 4 of them in this room here. And we bought kits to put those together. So we just had to hook up electrical and the plumbing. So the kits were only $5,500 a piece. So we could buy a ton of them, and tell people, hey, you want to sponsor a tiny house in Ukraine for $5,500, and it comes with beds, and it comes with the sinks, and it comes with the toilet, it comes with everything built inside of it. It's just like basically a one room that has a kitchen and a bedroom in it and a bathroom.
Holy cow! I mean, how does all that work? How does the logistics of that work? How do you get that from Omaha, Nebraska to Ukraine?
Oh, we didn't get it from Omaha.
I know, but how do you?
We found a company that were building them in Ukraine.
Oh, okay.
And so it's like they were able to build them, and we were helping furnish them jobs and still do stuff and buying hundreds of these tiny houses, for people, these families to live in. But it's not a permanent thing, because Ukrainians are so tough that once Russia, if they were in their area and then they would move out, they'd want to go right back in. It's like, well, you still got missiles flying around your neighborhood. Well, we want to go back. And so then we had another tiny house for another family, because Russia's moving around on the Eastern Front. And so we used them over and over and over again, or the schoolhouse or whatever. So that was a big focus. Then my first team was actually surgeons, and they were in Lviv, and Samaritan's Purse had a hospital, an underground hospital, which was literally underground. It was in the parking garage of a mall in Lviv. And then my guys worked their way up to Kyiv, and we're doing surgeries up there. And so we took surgeons with us. We were doing surgeries on civilians as well as soldiers. We've taken mental health teams, the last 2 teams, not only to do mental health with people, because we found out in these medical clinics that we're doing the year before that a lot of these parents were bringing their kids in, and you could see the stress on the parents' face. but the little kid's sick and throwing up and have diarrhea and a lot of other problems. And we'd say, well, are they stressed out from the war? And they go, nope, they're not stressed out from the war. It's like, so when did these symptoms occur? So they're thinking, they go, well, February of 2022. Well, that's when the war started,
Yeah.
you know, and they weren't making that connection. And so there's a mental health aspect of that in terms of, you know, they weren't realizing the mental health, you know, because especially the older ones have been through, or their parents have been through World War II or, you know, whatever. And so they're just a tougher group over there, you know. So we understood that we need to bring a mental health team over there. So we had medical team, we had mental health team, we have construction teams all the time. This year, the team that just got back yesterday, we had dentists with them. We can use dentists on every international trip.
Really?
Oh, everybody needs dental work for sure. Every country we go in, every place we go outside of the United States, they need dental work, you know, so.
How do you do that? How does a dentist take a practice? I mean, because, you know, like when I think of dentist, you know, I think of extremely clean facility, very precision type of tools.
Well, that sometimes is and sometimes isn't, you know. So,
but the need is there.
The need is there. So we actually, Sasha helped us line up with a few different dentists in Ukraine.
Okay.
Now, if you look at the medical things and all that stuff, they're not third world, but I would say a lot of their stuff is 10 to 20 years behind us.
Okay.
So they're still behind us a little bit. So they got some really nice dental chairs, and they set it up in this clinic up in this place, and then start putting the word out. And then, you know, because they know we've been coming for 6 months, so all of a sudden they're starting to line up. And they're not like us. They have more patience because they'll line up out the door, and it's like, to get a tooth pulled, they'll start at 7 o'clock in the morning. And if they don't even get it pulled till 5 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever, they're just used to waiting for things, you know.
Wow.
So yeah, the dentists were very important. And then what's also cool is the dentist here that went with us, they trained the dentist there on some new techniques. The mental health team, one of the biggest impacts they had is they got a big conference center and had all these mental health professionals come in from all over Ukraine, and they did these big conferences, and they went back and forth with stuff and found new techniques and all these kind of things. So it was like, we got to have them back. And so not only did they do a little bit of mental health stuff, maybe 10%, the 90% of it was training all these other mental health professionals over there so they could go throughout the country and do their thing, you know, and recognize what they're maybe looking for, you know, that it's completely different in a war zone than it is with your normal life, you know.
That is a powerful thing. I mean, that is so impactful. I mean, it's not just the immediate need that it's being touched, but it's really spreading it so far beyond what you could have imagined or what would have been anticipated. I mean, it's not even just the immediate need. It is now affecting and touching the lives of people all over the world, literally.
Yep. And so a lot of my team, rapid responders from the core group was from Peoria, Illinois, and they've been there a couple times, and they want to keep going back. And so I let them lead the team this time, especially since I had ankle surgery, so I didn't even go on this team. And they just had a phenomenal time. They said it was probably the best trip yet. So
wow,
yeah,
that's incredible. How does the is there a dynamic between like an Omaha Rapid Response and a Samaritan's Purse, or how do you guys in conjunction work together, you know, not step on each other's toes, or, you know, is there a correspondence that you guys have back and forth?
Sometimes, usually not. Usually we just see them in the field.
Okay.
So like Hurricane Michael that hit Panama City 2018 or whatever it was.
Yeah, Mexico City and Panama City.
Right, yeah. So we were down there right in the middle of that. And we were staying at a Baptist church, right, the big Baptist church right downtown Panama City. So Samaritan's Purse was staying at another church, but they had an overflow because they had, I think, 110 people, and they could only have like 90-some stay at that church. So like 20 of them came over to the Baptist church when we were there. Okay. So we interfaced with them, and it's like, hey, do you guys need help, or you need help, and how are things going there? And like we had them in Kentucky. We got there and found this 4-H camp that had like 40 cabins, And all of a sudden I got a call from Samaritan's Purse a couple days later and said, hey, can we stay at your camp? I go, it's not my camp. And they said, well, they said, you're in charge of it because it wasn't open, and they said, I said, well, yeah, what do you want? I said, I really only need like 4 cabins. There's 14 beds in each cabin. And so Samaritan's Purse showed up. My cooks were cooking for them and all that kind of stuff. And actually it was right in COVID time too. And so they were like, well, do you make sure all your people have COVID shots? I go, no. If they want to get shots, they can get shots. If not, well, they were making all their people get shots. And guess what? They all got sick while we were there. None of my people got COVID. They all got COVID.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden
they had to get shots for Samaritan's Purse?
Yeah. I know, it's crazy. So, we always say we do the same thing as Samaritan's Purse because Samaritan's Purse goes all over the world.
Yeah.
We don't have multi-million-dollar budgets every year.
Yeah. Right.
They got their own jets, they fly and all that kind of stuff. But they've been around the longest time. They've done a lot of really good work. I mean, I'm sure they're up to their eyeballs in North Carolina because that's their home base.
Yeah.
And all the stuff that's going on there. So, but then sometimes we just meet them out in the field and we're cutting trees together. We're doing this, we're doing that. Everybody's got their own little training thing. So some people are like, well, we don't want to do this. Or if you want to work with us, you got to wear our shirts, because they're looking at it as we want to show more people that work for us and we can get more money. We never look at it that way.
Yeah.
It's like, you want to come with us, you want to wear your own shirts, we don't care.
You just boots on the ground, go do what we can do.
Yep, that's it.
Go make an impact.
Yeah. So we're pretty laid back when it comes to that kind of stuff. And there's some ministries like Hope Force International out of Brentwood, Tennessee. They're like a sister organization. They love us. We love them. They're kind of not too big like we are, and they can come and go quickly instead of the big machine that comes in. I mean, some of these won't go unless they have 100 houses or 200 houses like already pre-picked before they even get in there. They said, in fact, during the floods in 2019 here, I called Samaritan's Purse and 8 Days of Hope and Hope Force International and those guys, Operation Blessing, said, I need help here. I mean, I got from Fremont all the way to Hamburg, Iowa. I said, I got 10 communities that got flooding. It was crazy. And so I called them in, set them all up with churches. They could stay at the big 8 Days of Hope brought the most people in, and I had them stay at Christ Community. And so they did a lot of work for Christ Community there, helped them out, and that was kind of cool. But the president, who's a friend of mine, Steve, he goes, you got 125 houses for me? I go, I got a lot more than that. But he wasn't going to come unless he had 125, which I was kind of scratching my head. I go, I understand, they don't want to move all their stuff out of Tupelo, Mississippi to come and help us, whatever. But it's like, we never questioned that,
Yeah.
We had a tornado hit a guy down here in Nahaka, Nebraska, just northwest of Union. And so I know that area well. My great-grandfather gave the land for Union to start a city back when, and that's where my dad grew up and all that kind of stuff was born. This farmer, a tornado landed in his yard, wiped out his house, and went back up. One person. And he wasn't getting help. So we took a team down there, and we just found out his wife died a few months before that, and he's kind of deaf, so he's in the barn, and his house was here, and the dog started barking and hitting him. And he goes out of his barn, and there's a tornado just coming down on his house.
Gosh.
So he gets almost to the house. The tornado slams him in the ground, rips his thigh open, slides him across. There's a tree about 15 feet from his house, and he grabs onto the tree, and it's just starting to suck him up. So he's like ripping the inside of his arms, going up the bark of the tree. And so then it dropped him back down. So then he wrapped his body around it this way and was just holding on for dear life. And the tornado took his house 15 feet away. And he goes, that tree saved my life. I go, sir, you being that close to a tornado, that tree did not save your life. Only God saved your life. He's like, well, maybe you're right.
Yeah.
He goes, don't cut down that tree. I said, I'm not cutting it down. I'm not cutting it down either, It was pretty tore up. And then his daughter came by a couple days later after we'd been working, and there was these little bobble things that were hanging from the tree, and we were going to trim the tree up, and she said, don't touch the tree. Those little things were my mom's. And that's when we found out my mom just died. She goes, the guy's wife died a few months before that. So we really just loved on him. Took a few teams down there over a few days, demoed his house, and we're getting ready to start building up. And then he had a builder come in, and then a couple other farmers came over and helped. But that was a prime example of what we do.
Yeah.
We just went in and loved on him for about a month, like every weekend for a month, 2 or 3 days a week. And so we didn't overwhelm them with a bunch of people. We probably had 8 to 10 people working down there. That's all we needed. And some of the other farmers showed up with some bigger tractors and that kind of thing. And so that was a perfect example right there that we could go in and do what we were supposed to do. And then I follow up with him and see how he's doing, or I drive by his place once in a while. And so, yeah, it's what a blessing that was. I mean, that's probably one of my best appointments, just to love on him, and how he was, when he talked about his wife, he couldn't talk about her. It's still fresh to him. And then going through the trauma of losing his whole house he's been in for decades, and so thank you, Lord, for letting us be a part of that. It was really cool.
I know there's families here locally that that we are working with to help rehabilitate their loss, and you guys had showed up and you guys did a ton of work for them, and you guys never foot anybody with any type of bill or invoice ever.
Never charged 1 penny in 25 years.
Never charge a penny. It's just a simple action of love that you guys provide. And it's an awesome thing to see, to be a part of. As we wrap up, I just want to, thank you for the service that you guys continue to provide, and the hope that you guys give to people around the world, and the impact that you guys do, and the love that you guys share for people. What is it, for anybody that that's out there that can be a part? What is it that we can do, or that we could facilitate, or what's a need that?
Well, you already know the answer to the first one. We
Prayer.
want people to pray. That's right. We want people
right.
to pray. And so what does that look like? Open yourself up to what God wants you to pray for. Pray for our safety. Pray for the disasters going on. There's another whole bunch of tornadoes that we're praying about right now in Nebraska, in Kansas, in Missouri, the one that usually everybody's been hearing about, in Kentucky,
a big one
London,
in Missouri,
Kentucky.
and Kentucky, right?
Yeah. And so the big ones, everybody's going to St. Louis and to London, Kentucky. It's not saying that we won't. It's like we're still in prayer about it. Are we supposed to go down there? But then all these other things hit. Because if you wait, it's like you want to go.
Yeah.
But God's like saying, no, wait, keep praying about it, because I know that in 3 days there's going to be a tornado drop down in your doorstep, that type of thing. It always happens that way, something we think we know more than God sometimes. Like, no, we're going to wait on God and see what it is. So we need people to pray. We need people to connect with us. We've got an app, Rapid Response America app.
Yeah, we'll share that.
And there's a calendar on there, and keep up on that kind of stuff. Communication is like so key. It's like, how can you get involved? You want to go? You don't have to do physical labor. You need to be able to just listen to people, but we do need physical labor. We do need chainsaw operators. We do need framers and plumbers and electricians and people that work with drywall, and especially
roofers.
mudders. I learned a bad mistake 6 years ago, because I would ask my question for my volunteers. I go, so who's put in drywall before? A lot of hands go up. I said, well, who's mudded before? And a lot of hands go up. Yeah. So I go back in a couple days later, and I took my professional mudders in there, and they turn around and walk out.
Like,
so now my question is, who does mudding professionally?
Yeah.
So, it's like you learn as you go along, so.
Yeah. There's certain things that it's a knack.
Right. Yeah.
It's a skill set.
Because that's, in a lot of houses, that's about where we finish after we've mucked out and mitigated the mold and dried everything out. Then we'll maybe sometimes run wire in some jurisdictions. We won't hook it up to the box. We'll hire electricians if we need to.
Yeah.
But insulate, put the drywall up, maybe mud, or at least get the mudding started. And then we're pretty much done, unless they can't move on forward, and then we'll check with them in a couple weeks or whatever. And they say, well, because some people they're well-to-do and they want to give us a donation. I said, well, that's fine. That's great if you could do that, but we're not asking for that. We want you to save your FEMA money, your insurance money, all that kind of stuff for your appliances and for your flooring and for all the stuff in your house that we're not going to be around here to pick out for you probably. So save your money for that kind of thing, Some people have given donations that we've actually worked on their property, but we actually discourage it because we don't want them to think that they're obligated to do that. So
yeah.
That's not why we're there.
You became a part of Omaha Rapid Response in 2006,
yeah.
2005.
January 2006.
And how long have you been the president?
Well, I always joke and say the board back in 2012 got drunk and maybe maybe the president, but here it again was another God thing. You know, I've been very close with my family. I had a large family, and my mom died in December of 2012, and within that same week, the former president of Rapid Response said, "Hey, I'm moving my family to Haiti full time." And
Wow.
building stuff down there come July 1st. So,
Wow.
hey, I want you to be the next president. Of course, it's the board's decision, but I want you to go in front of the board, which I did in May or June. And
Wow.
by July 1st of 2012, then I was the president. So, and God told me, you're trained, now you're going to come work for me. You know,
Absolutely.
it's like, of course, Lord, whatever you want. So,
And really, the amount of your experience in life and all the things leading up to this, I mean, it's just continued to be a blessing and an avenue for other people to learn and grow and develop. So, again, thank you for your time.
yeah, you bet.
We
Thank
pray
you.
for nothing but continued success and growth for the opportunity to continue to love and meet people in their time of need. And so, what an awesome experience. Come out, experience it. The chaplain opportunity, I think, is also a powerful opportunity and because you could be a chaplain and you could go meet somebody else's need at any given time. And it doesn't have to be in a time of desperation like this. It could be just a time of need.
Right.
And so we'll share whatever information we can that you have on, for your calendar and your website and your apps. So what an awesome experience. Grateful for the opportunity to sit down with you.
Yeah.
Grateful for the opportunity to see what you guys are doing, to be a part of it, and get unified with a core mission. One of the things that we have really loved to do is to see the impact that it's doing. And I loved hearing about the idea and the transformation that's happening when you guys are connecting with other organizations, local churches, organizations, fellowship things that are creating an extension of what Omaha Rapid Response is. And so that's been our greatest fulfillment, is seeing that and being a part of that. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. Appreciate you too.